We're going to call the BZA meeting to order, and our 9 o'clock case is 6419. Mr. Dixon, could you go ahead and introduce the file?
All right, case 6419, a request for conditional use for contractor's equipment storage yard and one distance variance. The site is located at northeast of Route 30, Hanover Pike, and approximately 0.5 miles north of Wentz Road, Manchester, Maryland, on property zone A, Agricultural District and Election District 6, by Hochstad Properties, LLC, in care of Sean Hochstad. Code of Public Local Laws and Ordinances, Section 158.070, E1C, and 158.040. A site visit is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, November 16, 2022, at approximately 9:15 a.m. In the file of this matter, we have the following documents. Site minutes. There is a response to a request from Joe Vance to various state and local agencies, a response from Thomas Harris, permits and inspections. All comments will be addressed during the site plan process and the building permit process. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from D. Scott Newell, Regional Engineer, Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration. Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration does not have any specific comment nor objection to approval of the proposed distance variance. MDOT SHA will review the site plan once submitted through the local development process and will issue comment then as appropriate. Any entrance, frontage, construction necessary within MDOT SHA right-of-way will require an access permit. There's a November 9th, 2022 letter from Linda D. Eisenberg, Secretary to the Planning Commission, to the Board. After having reviewed the information contained in the attached analysis, the facts as presented in the application, the relevant portions of the plan, and in accordance with the land use article, this conditional use request, if granted, is consistent with the policies, timing of the implementation of the plan, timing of development, timing of rezoning, development patterns, land uses, and densities or intensities. There's a November 9th, 2022 memo from Linda Eisenberg to the Board. The above referenced BZA case has been reviewed for consistency with the policies and recommendations contained in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019, the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan, and other functional plans. The staff finding is that this request is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 and would not have an adverse effect on the current use of the property. There is a response from Jay Voigt, zoning administrator. His comments, no comment. There's a notice of public hearing for this case, October 31st, 2022. There is a response from Janet O'Meara, Bureau Chief, Resource Management. See attached comment from Forest Conservation, Stormwater Management, and Water Resources. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Andrea Hanley, Carroll County Environmental Health Department. Proposed use may not be acceptable unless it is demonstrated that there is an adequate water supply, an adequate area for the installation of an initial and 2 replacement septic systems for the proposed use and any existing uses of this property. Hearing notice was posted October 27th, 2022 by Scott Robinson, zoning inspector. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from various state and local agencies from Laura Mateus, Bureau Chief, Development Review. Comments: in accordance with Chapter 155, a site development plan shall be processed. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from J.P. Smith Jr., Program Manager, Ag Land Preservation Program. This property is not in ag preservation. I have no comments at this time. Then there's the application for a contractor's equipment storage yard and one distance variance. There's a September 20th, 2022 letter from Clark R. Schaefer to the board. And there's a letter September 22nd, 2022 from Clark R. Schaefer to the board. And there is a zoning plan for the Hochstad property, Hanover Land Services, Inc. I would ask that the file be entered into evidence.
Do we have a motion to enter the file into evidence?
So moved. Seconded.
Been moved and seconded to move the file into evidence. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries, so we'll move the file into evidence. Before we get started, it looks like the clipboard was passed around. If you haven't signed in on the clipboard, make sure that you have. And another gentle reminder, please leave by the same door that you came in and turn your temporary IDs on, so at the end of the day, they're not trying to track you down. With that, I'm assuming Mr. Schaefer is the legal counsel for the applicant today. I'm going to try to explain to you in the audience that have never been to a BZA hearing before. The applicant will go ahead and, through his counsel, they'll go ahead and, Mr. Schaefer will call witnesses concerning this case today. After each witness, you will have the opportunity, anyone in the audience will have the opportunity to ask questions of that testimony, and ask questions of that testimony only. The board will also have the same privilege. After all of Mr. Schaefer's witnesses have been called, then it will be time for anyone in the audience that wants to give testimony, and Mr. Schaefer has the ability then to question your testimony, as do the board members. There'll be summation comments, and then we will decide the case. Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you. With your permission, I'll remain seated so I don't block people. Clark Schaefer, 73 East Main Street, on behalf of the applicant who is here with me today. My witnesses today will be Sean Hochstad and Keith Heindel, and I'm ready to proceed with my case whenever the board is ready to hear testimony.
Mr. Schaefer, before you get started, because I was derelict in my duties, if you plan on testifying here today, could you please stand and take the oath?
Go
You-
ahead. It's free, so if you want to say anything, you might as well stand up now.
Yeah, so go ahead and take the oath.
You can do it later. if you
Yeah.
want.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, you can be seated. Thank you. Mr. Schaefer, you can proceed.
Call Sean Hochstad as my first witness. Would you like him to sit at the center table?
That's fine, we're right there, wherever he feels comfortable.
Sean, state your name and address for the record, please.
Sean Hochstad, 2803 Hilltop Drive, Manchester, Maryland.
Sean, tell the board a little bit about your background and experience.
I'm born and raised in Carroll County my whole life. My entire family's from Carroll County. I went to school in Carroll County with the exception of high school. I went to DeLone Catholic in McSherrystown, Pennsylvania. At the time when I graduated high school, I decided to, instead of going to college, to work in my father's business,
What was that business?
concrete construction.
Is that the business that we're talking about here today?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Are you married with children?
I am. I have 3 little ones, and my wife is a Manchester Valley High School teacher.
Okay. So tell the board a little bit about the business and how it developed and grew over the years.
You know, my dad started this business in 1989, and he went through trials and tribulations.
Well,
And
let me interrupt you again. What is the business? What does the business do?
commercial concrete construction. So
Be a little more specific.
most of our business, the work that we do, is tilt-up construction. So it's big warehouses. So you go in, you put the foundations in first, then you pour the slab on grade, then you form and frame the walls on the floor, install the rebar, fill them full of concrete, and then pick them up and set them with a crane.
Now, that's a business that your father developed over the years, is that correct?
That is correct.
And is that the primary focus of the business in its current configuration?
That is correct.
And have you kind of taken over the business from your father?
That is correct.
Now, your father's here today. He's
Yes.
still obviously available for consultation, but you're the chief cook and bottle washer of the business, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, are you, where is it possible to define a geographic area that your business is concentrated in?
No, it depends on the market.
Where's the market right now?
Right now, the market's in Hagerstown.
What's going on in Hagerstown?
Amazon. A lot of Amazon buildings. We're doing,
They're the kind of buildings that you do, right?
yes, that's correct.
And you currently have some of those contracts, correct?
We currently have 2 buildings under contract for Amazon.
And your business is your business positioned where there's only 2 or 3 people that do what you do and have a good rep for this area?
Yes, in this area, there's very few competitors in Maryland.
All right. And so, did there come a time when you started looking for property where you could potentially locate a contractor's equipment storage yard here in Carroll County?
Yes,
And you live in the Manchester area right now?
yes,
And are you from that area?
yes, sir.
All right. So, and has that proven to be a convenient location for your business to operate out of?
It's convenient for me, yes, very.
Right. And so you found the property that we're here to talk about today, correct?
That is correct,
And you purchased it, correct?
Yes.
You own it, correct?
yes.
All right. Now, do you plan to build a house for you and your family to live on this property in the future?
Yes, that was the original intended use.
All right. And then, as you thought about it, you said, wait a minute, I could have my business right here where my house is if I can get the approvals, correct?
Correct,
In fact, you've gone so far as to get some preliminary architectural drawings for your house, your residential house, correct?
that is correct,
And you're looking at a house of around 5,000 square feet
yes,
of living space?
correct.
Now, let me see what order I'm going here. What kind of just generally describe what kind of equipment you use in your business?
Typical heavy construction equipment, excavators, dozers, laser screeds, light towers, man lifts, forklifts.
Now, you've prepared an equipment list of current items, correct?
Correct,
And that's been marked for identification as Exhibit 2. I'm showing you that. Is that the equipment list you've prepared?
that is the equipment list, yes.
And does that list some items in black and some items in red?
That is correct,
And there's a note next to the red ones that says these items would be at the shop, most of, and then it's cut off. What's that mean?
that the items in red will, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of equipment that are in the red will be at the shop. or at
Most
the office.
likely-
Most likely, most of the time.
Okay. The other items in black, what about those?
They'll be on sites, and they get moved from site to site to site. They're in the shop, something's either broke, hard broke, very bad, that can't be fixed in the field, or it's not a good sign because there's no work.
Now, business has been going on for, did you say 89?
89, that's correct.
So that's 20-some, 30-some years.
Mm-hmm.
In those 30 years, has the business been pretty steady, or is it up and down?
No, it's been steady.
All right. So, in those 30 years, is your experience that equipment will be on the job site 99% of the time?
That is correct.
I'd like to offer this into evidence as my Exhibit 2.
And we will accept that into evidence.
Mr. Hochstead, is it possible that equipment list will change? In other words, some equipment might be sold or decommissioned, and other equipment might be substituted in its place?
Yes,
Is it possible you might add to that list as your business grows?
yes,
Is it possible you could subtract from that list as your business develops?
yes.
Now, describe give the board a picture of what if this is approved, what will the activities on the site look like on a typical business day? What, will it be weekdays, will it be weekends, what hours, that kind of thing?
No, it would be weekdays, Monday through Friday.
And what time you get started in the morning?
So for office, they would start at 8, and they would be finished by 4 daily. Project manager or estimator may come in earlier. He may start his day at 6, and then leave at lunchtime, and maybe not come back for the rest of the day if he has meetings, or he may work late into the evening to try to get a number for a budget or a bid out the door on a deadline. But in generally speaking, the 2 people in the office would be there from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday.
And those are the only 2 people that, at least currently, are the employees that would be at the site, right?
That is correct.
The other employees go to the job sites, correct?
That is correct.
And in your experience, do they ever come to the site? I mean, is there a Christmas party or something, or?
Yes, possibly, maybe once a year, and generally speaking, not every employee. It would be supervision, superintendents, operators, things like that, not laborers and carpenters and every single employee in the company.
What do you use now for a contractor's equipment storage yard?
I rent a shop on Maple Grove Road, the old Wilhelm Sawmill.
Okay. And that's now been sold, and there's been some changes, and that's going to end, correct?
That is going to end, yes.
Now, what will the secretary or the office administrator, I think it's obvious, but that person will drive to the site in their own vehicle, correct?
Correct,
Park the vehicle, correct?
correct,
Get out and walk into the office that you're going to show the board on your plans, correct?
correct,
And then that person will perform office duties inside that office during the day, correct?
that is correct.
Now, the project manager will go into that same office?
Yes,
Same thing, drive his or her own vehicle and then get out and go in, right?
he has a company truck, but yes,
Okay, as a company truck. And then, will that person be out in the yard during the day doing anything?
no.
Okay. What activities, if any, will occur out in the yard during the day?
If, for example, if the laser screed, which gets stored at our shop most of the time.
The what?
The laser screed, a Samara laser screed.
Laser screed?
Screed, correct.
What's that?
It's a robotic machine that goes out and it places the concrete down in a flat level plane. It's very weather sensitive, so it gets stored inside all the time. And if that might have to get loaded on a tractor and trailer for a job the next morning. If something is broken, it will probably be in the shop getting fixed.
And will you also perform, and that, you call it, would you characterize that as regular routine maintenance?
Yes,
If there's major maintenance, it'll have to go off-site sometimes, right?
correct.
Now, will there be any other, I'll call them trips, traffic trips? You know what I mean when I say a trip? It means a vehicle drives on and then drives off. What other trips would occur during the day associated with that contractor's equipment storage yard?
Maybe a FedEx delivery or UPS delivery.
Well, wouldn't you have maybe some supplies or something stored there that your vehicle would have to come on and get and take somewhere?
No, all of our supplies are delivered directly to the site.
So there's very little, only incremental, I'll call it, occasional traffic that will be into that yard, moving that equipment back and forth, correct?
That is correct.
The equipment you described as staying on the site, does that stay on the site 24/7, 365?
Yes,
Okay. I mean, once in a while, it's got to be, at least sometimes when it's moved off, right?
the equipment that's staying at the shop site?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the dump truck or
Yeah.
yes, but very, very minimal.
Okay. Who drives that dump truck?
I do.
Okay. And of course, you're planning on living on this site, right?
That is correct.
But right now, you live near it.
Correct.
Have you, well, wait a minute. Let me just see. Have you hired an architect to do some preliminary drawings, not preliminary, but drawings of the proposed contractor's equipment, facility, and office?
Yes,
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked exhibit number 3. Is that the drawing that the architect has provided to you?
yes, that is the drawing for the office.
And you've reviewed that, and you've had dialogue with the architect, and that's in accordance with what you want to build on the site, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, we don't have a board. May he approach to refer to this? Or can I have it?
Yes. Mr. Schaefer, you can get close to the, don't touch these microphones, but go ahead and get there so that we can record your every word.
Sean, walk up here with me, will you? You don't touch him?
Well, go ahead and bring it just straight up.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so keep in mind that we want to make our,
And please don't scrape the paper against there and blow Matt's ears out.
yeah, okay. Now, here's a drawing that's been marked for identification as Exhibit 5. That's the drawing that we submitted with the application, correct?
Yes.
And you had Keith Heindel, who will testify later about the details of this drawing, correct?
That is correct.
However, this drawing does show the outlines of the property, right?
Yes.
Point to Route 30 on that. Okay? And then point to the existing driveway that accesses that site. Point to where, the approximate location of where you think SHA is gonna want/accept your new entrance. Right there, okay. And then, point to the area that you intended, I'm sorry.
Can I ask, the existing, the new driveway is going to be where the existing shed is? You've got a barn and then
Correct.
towards,
There's a shed there.
there's a small shed there towards Wentz Road, and that's where the driveway will be?
Just,
Yeah.
just to the, I guess, south of
South
it,
Okay,
just to the south.
okay. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I
That's
just,
okay. So point to the area that's the contractor's equipment storage yard area. Okay. And is there 2 buildings shown on there?
There is.
Okay, point to the office building.
The office will be the front building,
Point to the contractor's equipment building.
the back building.
Okay. Now, with that orientation, and then point to your proposed house site, approximate, okay?
Mr. Schaefer, could you hold that up? We're gonna depart a little bit from our normal procedure. What is the area landmass there that is highlighted in yellow that includes the shop and the office building?
That's the 1 acre contractor's.
So it's one, that is 1 acre?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask, how large is the property altogether?
That's what I was wondering.
40 acres.
40
acres, approximately 40 acres. Okay.
Any other questions, guys? All that map was there. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to
No problem.
interrupt the process.
You gotta stay up here. And now, I'm gonna show you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 3. Does that show the, some elevations for the office?
That is correct.
All right, now, so what's it show? I mean, the office, how's it, it shows that it's gonna be a little more than a pole building, right?
Correct.
Go ahead and just explain it.
I gotta look at it from my house. So, and I want it to be keeping with the environment. And with how the grades worked, if you can see on, page 1.02, and we're calling it the rear elevation, that it's not where you walk in, but it's gonna look like a bank barn. I want it to look like a bank barn, so when you come up, with how the elevation works, it fits with the Carroll County farmland. It's gonna have stone veneer on this and vertical, board and batten siding with a shingle roof.
Now, and then there's, the other pages in this show things like floor plan and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
All right.
What's the square footage? I'm sorry, while you're there.
3,000, if you include the basement.
So I'd like to offer this in as my, and now you, excuse me, you intend to build this or something substantially similar to this, is that correct?
That is correct.
We'd like to offer this as our Exhibit 3.
And we'll accept that into evidence.
Now, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 4. What's that?
That would be the shop.
That's the drawings for the shop.
Correct.
All right, can you just generally explain to the board what that shows?
Same thing. The bottom 4 feet above grade will be a stone veneered or real stone laid wall against a concrete foundation wall. And then up from that will be vertical siding with a shingle roof. Got some dormers and it has 3 garage doors, 3 bay doors. There's an overhang on this side that reaches out 24 feet by the depth of the building, which is 50. We may add one to this side, just for.
Add one what?
The overhang.
You may add an overhang on
I may
the
add
other
an
side of the
overhang on the
building
other
for
side.
additional outdoor storage, is that correct?
Correct.
And that would be to the north?
That would be to the northeast.
Okay. And again, the question, how many square feet?
50 by 80, so,
50 by four-
Okay.
4,000.
yep.
By the way, I think you'll see that everybody that's doing these is staying under 5,000 feet because you have to sprinkle above 5,000, even for equipment storage. So, okay, and then there's an interior, there's further pages that show interior floor plan, that kind of stuff, right?
Correct. Yes, it's not much of an interior floor plan, it just shows a bathroom.
Yeah, okay. And then, I'd like to offer this as my Exhibit 4.
And we'll go ahead and accept that into evidence.
Sean, we can get back here. Will the equipment, where will the bulk of the equipment that you store on the site, where will it be located? In the building or outside?
Inside the building.
Okay, what's the covered area for?
The covered area is for, occasionally we will have some form lumber that we will reuse on multiple projects. Problem with usually using form lumber is some form lumber is 2x10, some is 2x8, some is 2x6, it depends on the job. That enclosed area, we will put the form lumber under just to keep the weather off of it.
Because it can become unusable if it gets
Correct.
wet and
Correct.
swelling and stuff like that, correct?
Yes.
Do you store any other things, other than vehicles and the stuff you've listed? Like, do you store concrete on the site?
No, we don't store any
Do you
concrete.
store sand on the site?
No,
You store oil on the site?
no.
You do intend to have a tank, diesel tank?
That is correct.
Okay, and you've checked with the county regulations on that one, correct?
Yes.
And your tank will be well under 2,500 gallons, right?
That is correct.
Describe the general area that this is located in. I mean, I know everybody knows it, but we're on the record here, so Can you just say out loud, like it's, for instance, is it on Route 30?
Yes, it's on Route 30.
Yeah, and front's on Route 30, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And the driveway, there's an existing driveway entrance from Route 30, correct?
Correct?
And there's a proposed driveway entrance from Route 30, correct?
That is correct.
And that's the one the chairman asked for a few details about, correct?
Yes,
Now, that entrance is something that will be subject to a State Highway Administration access permit, correct?
correct.
Now, you're showing it there because your land use consultant has said that that's the likely place, is that correct?
That is,
But but we have to go through SHA to get that finalized, correct?
that is correct.
Is it possible that could change by, feet or
Yes.
yards?
Yes,
But it shouldn't change that much, should it?
I would not think so.
What's the topography like on the site, especially the topography of the frontage of the site along Maryland Route 30? What's that topography like?
From Route 30 up to the top of the land, it's about a 100-foot elevation difference.
It's a steep slope, isn't it?
Correct.
I mean, use a technical term.
Yes.
And then and that's pretty much a good part of the frontage, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then once you get up there, it levels out to the Carroll County rolling countryside,
Right,
doesn't
where
it?
it levels out to the valley and then a hill on each side of the property.
Okay. This property is located, I didn't even look, is located in or near the village of Melrose, is it not?
Yes, just north.
Yeah. Well, we don't know the exact outlines of that village in the master plan, because I didn't look at it, but it's in or near the village of Melrose, correct?
Correct.
Now, what is Melrose?
Small residential town.
Well, does it have a commercial center there on Route 30 and,
Absolutely.
yeah, what is that, New Bottom Valley Road that comes up there?
Bottom Valley Road.
All right. And is there commercial development in the area?
There is.
Describe generally the commercial development that's nearest to you, really across Route 30 from you.
Really, right across Route 30 from me is an automobile repair shop and a used car lot.
And then also Genova's To Go is
There's
located along there too.
Genova's Italian restaurant. A little further south is Highs gas station.
Okay, now you're down into Melrose when you're getting to the highs, right?
Correct.
All right, okay. Now, you've talked to at least some of your neighbors. You talked to a guy named Doug Sims, didn't you?
That is correct.
Owns property up there adjoining you?
Yes,
And you explained to him the project, right?
that is correct.
And has he indicated he's okay with it, he does not oppose it?
That is what he told me, yes.
All right. And did you get a letter from him?
I did.
All right, and is that letter shown labeled Exhibit 1 here?
That is correct.
I'd like to offer this, and is Mr. Sims here today? Offer this as my Exhibit 1.
And we'll accept that into evidence.
Now, you own 40 acres up there, and you're going to put your own house on there. Do you believe that it's possible in the future this land could be subdivided for additional residential lots?
Yes.
Okay. However, that's not on the table right now, is it?
No.
And do you understand that if you did that, you'd have to go through all the reviews, environmental reviews, and zoning reviews, and planning commission reviews, before that, anything like that would be approved?
Yes.
Right. Do you also understand that even if this board approves this conditional use application and variance, that you will then need to go through a site plan process?
That is correct.
And you've talked in some detail with myself and Keith Heindel about that, have you not?
Yes.
Do you, at least based on your preliminary, have you done preliminary perks?
For this building?
Yeah, for anything.
Yes, for
Okay.
all of it.
So you've done enough to lead you to believe that this is worth pursuing and can meet the Carroll County codes, correct?
That is correct.
But those approvals need to come in the future, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. That's all I have for Mr. Hochstead.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions of Mr. Hofstad's testimony? Okay, go to the microphone. And again, questions of his testimony, you'll have the opportunity for your own testimony later.
Yeah, I'm Marlon Michaels. I live on Hay Drive. I'm interested in, I haven't seen the list, but the number of vehicles there and how many of them have diesel engines. That's my primary question.
Just so you can take a look at it. Sean, can you answer that question?
Yeah, so what will be there will be a tractor and trailer, which has a diesel engine, a dump truck, which has a diesel engine, and a service truck, which also has a diesel engine.
Sean, I know it's awkward, but you need to talk into that microphone and just have to have your back to Mr.
Okay.
Mills.
So we'll have 3 pieces of equipment there with diesel engines.
Okay, that's good.
A dump truck, a tractor and trailer, and a mechanic service truck, just like a pickup truck that has a diesel motor in it.
So you've got the 2 bulldozers, 2 excavators, a backhoe, 2 rollers, a loader, 2 bobcats, plus you've got 5 trucks. So I assume all these items have diesel engines?
That is correct. But they will not be stored on that site. They will be on our job sites.
They're never on that site?
Very, very rarely, only for routine maintenance or if the economy went bad. But relatively speaking, no, they will not be on that site.
Mr. Michaels, I didn't get your address, sorry.
I'm at 4850 Hay Drive.
What's the drive?
Hay, Hay.
Okay, 350. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Hochstad's testimony? And I didn't tell everybody this, but Mr. Michaels was gracious enough. Name, address, occupation, and spell for the record your last name.
Okay. Larry Herdigan, last name Herdegen. I'm at 4756 Hay Drive, Manchester. Occupation, I'm semi-retired general superintendent. My question is, with the site, with storing equipment adjacent to my land, is that first we were having a shop and everything was going to be repaired off-site. Now it seems that some of the equipment's going to come back. So if the equipment comes back to the shop, does the shop have blacktop facility, containment, and whatnot, so that as we're working on this equipment, we can contain diesel fuel, gasoline? One of my other concerns is, being a general superintendent for 42 years, a lot of my equipment got hauled in and out of the job with a lowboy at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that means it left their shop at 3 o'clock in the morning. So my concern is that constant traffic in and out of that property, 3 a.m. to as late as 8 p.m. at night, it's a daily. And then a concern with 2,500 gallons of fuel. So is that diesel, or is that a combination of both diesel and gasoline?
For the diesel fuel remark, no, we will have less than 2,500 gallons of diesel fuel. We have 2 tanks, 2 250-gallon tanks, and they will be diesel fuel only. No, the equipment will not be leaving this yard at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The equipment won't be at this yard, And when the equipment does come there, if it is broken or it needed to be there for routine maintenance or for some reason it is there, no, I would not send a driver down the road at 3 o'clock in the morning to deliver a piece of equipment that they need for that day. I would have them deliver it the day before during normal hours. And to address your concerns as far as diesel fuel spillage or anything like that, sure, we'll have a containment system where we dump the filters in, and then a truck will come and vacuum the tank out for the bulk used oil. And at this point, we haven't decided. We may use the bulk oil for heat in the shop.
Right, but common drippage out of 25 pieces of equipment can become substantial. So I have a concern with that. The adjacent property behind you is a start of a feeder creek. That creek goes east of you and down across, what's his name road. So, I mean, I just have, and my well is above. My biggest concern is after you get if you change this to a commercial property, being in a concrete business like everyone else out there, you're gonna, well, on a 40-acre site, gonna wanna build a concrete plant. And then you're gonna use 25,000 gallons of water, right? And then what do the surrounding homeowners in the area do for water?
Well, sir, I can assure you that I will not build a concrete plant on this site because there is no public utilities. And if we're in the middle of, that'd be a huge investment and a huge risk to sit there and depend on a well to be able to produce, mass produce concrete production. And like earlier we testified, 25 pieces of equipment will not be on this site at one time.
Okay, I'll take your word that you're not gonna extend the property to any commercial buildings other than your shop and your office. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Board members, questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Colwell?
Good morning. I have a couple of questions. One is, we didn't really address the noise levels of vehicles. I'm a little puzzled that, you know, you've got a list of 20-something vehicles, and you said also that they wouldn't be there at that yard all the time. Tell me about how your business model works in terms of where the vehicles are. Are they going from one job? Maybe I can fill in the blanks. Maybe, do they go from one job to the next and never come back to the yard?
That is correct.
And that's for most of the equipment?
That is where most of the equipment, except the equipment that's listed in red. The equipment that's listed in red, they have that one, right? The equipment that's listed in the red will be the equipment that is at the site more times than not. The equipment that's listed in the black should never be at this site. It goes from one job. We'll send a load boy from this location to go pick it up and move it from one job to the next job.
It must be a pretty brisk business then if you can schedule that tightly.
Well, a lot of times we have to rent equipment because we can't schedule it that tightly.
Okay, all right, okay.
And
I
so we'll have to
understand.
rent some equipment to fill in until we can get a piece broke loose from another job to get sent to a different one.
I understand. So it's not likely then in the morning, first thing in the morning, there'll be any significant amount of noise generated by multiple vehicles warming up. Is that correct?
That is correct,
Okay, thank you very much.
yes.
Board members?
I have a question.
I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
good.
So the equipment that will be at the site, you said that really it doesn't leave the site very often. So what is the use of the equipment, just in case you need it for something, or?
So the tractor and trailer, so how our business works is, we'll go in, we'll start a job, okay? And in 3 months from now, that job will have ended,
Okay.
okay? During that time, that tractor and trailer will be moving equipment. Probably, it may leave 4 times that week, and it'll move piece from one job to the next, and then it will come back and it'll sit. Tractor and trailer, I can tell you this because I'm the one driving the tractor and trailer right now. I haven't moved that tractor and trailer in 2.5 weeks
Okay.
because I haven't had to move any equipment.
Now, Sean, these job sites are not somebody's house. These are huge warehouse projects mostly, right?
That is correct.
So, and they usually involve acres and acres of construction activity, correct?
Yes, I mean, the job that we just finished was 1.4 million square feet under roof.
Okay, well, I guess, here's the question. Are those job sites such that if you do have a lag of a week or 10 days, you can leave your stuff on that job site?
That is correct.
Because it's just more construction going on there, right?
Yes,
Okay. And of course, if those pieces of equipment come back to your shop, that's bad news, isn't it?
that is not good news.
And over 30 years, there's been good news all around for you, right?
That is correct.
They don't come back to the shop, right?
They don't.
And so my other question is, where does the maintenance on those vehicles take place then? Do they come back to you to have oil changes and whatever?
No,
Or do you actually take it to the site and do it there?
Simple maintenance, such as oil changes or hydraulic lines, anything like that, all happens on site because it's cheaper and more efficient for us to send a person out there to the field, to the job site where the machine is, to do it there than to send a tractor and trailer up to pick it up, bring it back, and then send another tractor and trailer, make 2 trips, and we just do it in one with a service truck.
What about what about more than routine maintenance?
If it's more than routine maintenance, it depends. Either we will fix it in-house and in the shop, it will come back to the shop. If it's too big, it'll go to the dealer.
So it won't be maintained like your car every 3,000 miles. It's gonna come into your shop and
No.
then leave. It'll just be something large that is not good for you to have to bring that back.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Steiner.
So would you have typical, normal working hours at your yard?
Yes, 8 to 4.
8 to 4. And so are there employees other than you that actually would work there?
Yeah, 2 other employees.
Okay. So they come in 8 to 4. So if there is so there really is there not really scenarios where we have odd hours working? And the reason I ask that is because when you mention Amazon, I'm familiar with their business model, and I'm sure you're doing nights and evenings and weekends and whatever. Does that, how does it influence the activity at the yard?
The only person, or the only way that would influence anything is when my house would be built, because I would probably be leaving at midnight from my house to go to work. But as far as the shop or the office is concerned, it wouldn't. None of those employees would be there. Or if like my project manager, instead of coming to work in the morning, he would leave his house at midnight and go to the job site.
Understood. So is there a way that you plan to define the yard? When I say define the yard, are you anticipating any type of screening or doing anything like that? It's just, I know that comes up in the site plan, but I'm just
Yes.
asking for general purposes.
Well, luckily, where the site is on 2 sides of it, it's already butting up to the woods line. On the, I guess it'd be the northeast side, which would be the side facing my house. Yeah, I plan on putting in Leland cypress trees, like a landscape fence, to, block off, not the whole image of it, but kind of give myself the separation of work and home.
Understood. And my last question is, oftentimes we see equipment yards digress into material storage yards. And, I understand there's, I would think a lot of your material would be delivered directly to the site. Is there a plan, or is it anticipated that you would have an amount of material, whether it be rebar or screening or whatever the case may be, or I call it screening anyway, you know what I'm saying, the fence,
correct.
rebar looking stuff. Tell me about any material storage that you anticipate.
The only material storage would be lumber. Like I said before, certain projects have different thicknesses of concrete, and we use lumber to form our concrete. And lately it's been going in trends. We'll do one building, they call for 8 inches, next building will call for 10, the next building will call for 6. So, and we try to get maximum use out of our lumber.
Sure.
So when we're finished with it, we band it up with a banding machine and have it in units. If that lumber is not needed, that would be really the only thing that would be stored there. How precise computers are nowadays in estimating, there really isn't leftover material on sites. And for the little bit that it is, it's cheaper for us to throw it in the dumpster at that job site than to haul it back down and try to gather enough to do a job. It would take years to gather enough to even think about trying to do a job with saved material.
Understood. Thank you for your answers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the question that I have, so your rebar, any materials associated other than the form materials, anything used in the concrete construction is delivered to the site, not delivered to the job site, not to, would not be delivered to your shop.
That is correct.
Okay, and Mr. Sims, you have a letter from him.
That's correct.
Is he the landowner that you need the variance from?
I believe, yes.
No.
Because you need one,
No, it's this one, it's Mr. Azevedo.
As of you.
okay.
Sims is next door to Azevedo.
So he's in, but
This
his
is-
house is the closest. Well, his property line's the closest. That was the
Probably-
confusion, because he has over 3 acres.
He's close, but we don't need a variance from him because of your weird distance code. But, no, that's not where we need the variance from.
Okay.
Where does he need the variance from?
He said Mr. Ravo, whatever.
Let me,
Yeah, Azevedo.
may I just
Yes.
quickly? This is Azevedo, which is the variance over here.
Okay,
This is Sims and this is Sims. So you see Sims has really got a house that overlooks it, but because of the code language, we don't need a variance from him.
okay.
But in this one, Keith Hind will get into very detail. We're 348 from that property line, 348 feet. We're supposed to be 600 under your thing. Now, we did the distance to his house just because frankly, we thought we might need it. It's 512. We're supposed to be 600 from the property line. So that's that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? It's a little out of order, but go ahead, I'll allow you.
Okay. The only other question I have is if we have a residence.
Wait a
who have- I'm
minute,
sorry.
identify yourself, please.
Again, all right.
Yeah.
Larry Herdigan, Herdegen, 4756 Hay Drive, Manchester. If we're having multiple buildings and multiple employees, so does that mean we're having one septic system for the home, one septic system for the shop, and one septic system for the office, is my question.
No, so we will have one septic system for my house, and then the shop and the office will have their own septic system. So there will be a total of 2 septic systems at this moment.
Okay. Done with questions? Very good. Mr. Schaefer, you want to call
Keith, I'd
another?
like to call my next witness, please.
Yes.
Keith Heindel. Keith, state your name and address and occupation for the record, please.
Yep, Keith Heindel. I'm with Hanover Land Services. Our office is 194 East Main Street in Westminster.
And what's your occupation?
I'm a land surveyor,
Are you a registered land surveyor in the state of Maryland?
yep, licensed professional land surveyor.
Licensed professional land surveyor, okay. And how long have you been doing that work?
I don't think we have that much time, Clark.
Well, I just wanna-
I've been at this since '85, and I've been licensed since 2003.
Okay, talk to them. And you were with A.L. Snyder for a
18
time,
plus
and,
years.
were you with Carol Lancer? What is
Yeah,
now
Carol Ann for 4, and then I was in business for myself as professional surveys for 10 years, and then I've merged my business with Hanover Land Services
And
back in
have you qualified
17.
as an expert in the area of land use and site development
Yes.
design before this board
Yes, sir.
in the past?
Yep.
More than one time?
Yes, several times.
I would ask that he be recognized as an expert in the area of land use, site development, and design.
We will accept him as an expert witness in those areas.
Thanks. Now, Keith, this has been marked for identification as Exhibit 5. Is this the zoning plan you prepared of the Hochstead property?
That is correct.
Right. Can you come up to this microphone with me? This is what I'm showing. Now, got that mic. Explain to the board, I know we've gone over a lot of this. What's this show? Where's Route 30, where's the entrance, and what's your plan,
Okay.
and why'd you design it that way?
Well, Route 30 is this road here. The property consists of a little over 40 acres. As discussed previously, there's an existing driveway that ends approximately here. Proposed driveway is going to be just south of the existing barn, which will be removed.
Now, you've had a meeting at the site with the engineer from the State Highway Administration prior to this, have you not?
I had a discussion with them. We performed a site distance evaluation, and that's why the proposed driveway entrance is not shown here. That's where it will be an adequate distance. This is, you'll see on here that this looks like a cloud almost. That's the edge of the forest, the existing woods. So this purpose of having this storage yard, 1 acre area in this location was because it has screening on 2 sides of it already, along with this area from the edge of the forest down to the road is an extremely steep slope. It's very highly unlikely that anyone would be able to see any part of this site from the road. And on top of that, as Sean, Mr. Hochstead just mentioned, this is the approved septic area location for the residents. And we have another one, since this was submitted, that was approved for the contractor storage yard for the
Now, we'll get into some testimony on the variance a little later, but for now, while we have this shown, I mean, if you move this contractor's equipment storage yard over here or somewhere, you then need distance variances from other people, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you, okay.
Yeah, there's nowhere on site where we could place it. There's topographic issues. This is, up the center of the site is a swale or a valley, and that's where our entrance is coming in there. That gives us the flattest slope possible to get in. This area over here and this area over here are very steep.
And then there's the forest.
Right, and then there's forest, which we want to try to protect and not remove.
Now, is the topography along Route 30 of this site different than the topography on the other side of Route 30?
Yes, very much so. These areas on this side are very, I want to say very gentle slopes, almost flat. And they provide very nice, I guess what you want to say, roadside business appeal. Most all of that is right at grade, where our site, is borderline mountainous. It's quite hilly, so completely different.
What is the percent slope between the right there where your finger is?
Greater than 25.
Okay.
It's very steep on that hillside.
Okay.
If I can ask a question,
Go ahead.
got the map there.
Why the map? All the maps there, yeah.
While the map is here, how much do you have to move out to create that driveway? Because that's quite a sizable hill along that side.
Well, where this driveway comes, there is an existing road bed there. It's not paved. So that's the existing farm roads for access between the fields and so forth.
But you'll still have to grade, right?
We'll still have to grade,
Yeah.
obviously, because we'll have to install probably an 18-foot wide driveway for the commercial use. That'll be part of the.
Access permit.
Well, it'll be part of the site plan process too.
Thank you.
A question, it was testified that two sides of the proposed equipment yard is shielded by woods. Can you point that out on the map?
Sure. This area, so the woods line currently runs here like this.
So if I'm hearing it correctly, then the area where you're requesting the variance is shielded by woods?
Yes. Whoops, I'm sorry.
That's
And
old,
the area
old
that's
growth.
not shielded by woods is, as Sean said, kind of toward his house.
Towards his
right?
house.
The interior.
Yeah, and I really, even though I said the two sides are shielded, really it's three, because there's a portion of forest that comes up here and then wraps around here, so these adjoiners are blocked out by the forest as well.
Is the county going to require you likely under the Forest Conservation Ordinance to preserve that forest?
Yeah, as much as we can, yes.
Quick question before you go away. What kind of trees are there? Deciduous or?
Yes,
They're deciduous trees, okay.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to offer this in evidence, I think this is the only one I haven't
It's in
offered.
the
This is,
file.
as my exhibit 5.
Keith, in your opinion, does the topography of this site make it unique and unusual?
Yes.
Is it different than the properties immediately across Route 30?
Yes, as I explained before, the frontage of this site, except for where our entrance is very, very steep. Sites across the street are fairly flat in grade.
Is this property generally a larger parcel or tract of land than those in the immediate vicinity?
Yeah, it's the largest parcel, as far as any of the adjacent properties. This is 40 acres. Most of the adjacent properties are much less than that.
And I know we've said it already, but since it's on my checklist, in order to comply with the county's, the literal distances in the county's distance requirements, you couldn't locate this site anywhere on the site, could you?
That is correct.
You'd need a variance no matter where you put it, right?
Yes, sir.
Maybe more than one.
Yes, sir.
You heard Sean Hockstead describe the surrounding area, at least in part, correct?
Yes,
Now, there are other properties around that are residential that are shown on your drawing, correct?
that's correct.
In your opinion, is this area typical of the properties in the agricultural zone of Carroll County?
Yes.
Can explain why?
Carroll County it's very typical for Carroll County, where there are large parcels adjacent to smaller, they're zoned agricultural, but used for residential purposes. Rolling landscape like most of northern Carroll County.
Are there other rural villages in Carroll County like Taylorsville and Gamber and
Sure.
Mayberry and Tyrone?
Yes.
Okay, and is this Melrose area somewhat typical, namely a crossroads where there's a center of commercial development and then some residential development and farmland leading out from it?
Yes.
Now, do you believe that this use, as described at this particular location, would have adverse effects above and beyond those adverse effects inherently associated with such a use, regardless of its location in the zone?
No.
And why not?
I think the adverse effects, I guess inherent with his use, are just a little bit of traffic and small amounts of noise, which I think are typical of any project site. And currently, the property is farmed, so there's noise there as well during farming activities.
Okay. Let me just think. Oh, and now the variance request, we got into it a little bit, but it only applies to that one property, correct?
That's
And
correct.
that one property is shielded, at least in part, by forest, correct?
That is correct.
What would be the hardship? I mean, I think it's obvious, but would the hardship be that you couldn't locate the contractor's equipment storage yard on this if you can't get the variance?
That's correct.
That's all I have for Mr. Heindel.
Any questions of Mr. Heindel's testimony from anyone in the audience? Go ahead and go to the mic. Name, address, and
My name
spell
is
for the
Bill
record your
Noblock.
last name.
Bill Noblock. I represent Marcianos of Manchester LLC at 4724
I
Hanover.
can't hear him. so.
Okay, you're gonna have to get a little bit closer to the microphone
My name is Bill Noblock,
and spell for the record your last name.
ANOBLOCH.
Okay?
And I represent the interests of Marcianos of Manchester LLC at 4724 Hanover Pike, Manchester, Maryland.
Okay.
My question for Keith is, explain, I'm having a difficult time understanding the variance that's being applied for and the exact reason why. I was wondering if you could restate the reason for that, please.
Let's show where the variance is.
Okay.
We need a variance from 600 to 348. Located it here, we don't need variance from here. We located it here, we need variance from here. So that's the variance, one variance from 600 to 348, right there.
And that's because that lot is less than 3 acres.
No, for the shop lot.
So that lot in itself is a separately deeded lot from the remainder of the acreage?
Well, no, that's not part of, no, this, the contractor storage yard, that's just depicted to show that that's the area that we're requesting
You're
used for commercial.
Explain to me, under the ordinance, you're only allowed to have 1 acre unless you get a variance from the size requirements, right?
Correct.
Keith, speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Difficult. Anyway, yeah, so based on the current zoning ordinance, we're only allowed an acre of contractor storage yard. Otherwise, we have to apply for a variance for additional size
So,
as
Keith,
well.
You're not, this application does not include a permission to park vehicles, store equipment, or have activities anywhere other than that shaded 1 acre area, correct?
That is correct.
I'm sorry, maybe he still, I don't think he finished his question.
And is it safe to assume that the contractor's storage yard needs to be at that position on the lot due to a requirement of distance from the residential construction, proposed residential construction?
Not exactly. As Mr. Schaefer pointed out before, there really isn't anywhere on the 40 acres where we could put the contractor storage yard and meet all the distance requirements for the use, for the contractor storage yard.
If I understood him correctly, he was saying, does the location of that relate to required distances from Sean's proposed house?
Oh, no.
The answer is no.
No.
It does not relate to that. It's not driven by that.
Some of it had to do with where we could obtain good perk tests. That's certainly a factor, and we were able to do that. The other factor is, as Mr. Hockstad and I worked through this process of trying to basically place it in a location that is already naturally screened from.
Trying to hide it. You tried to hide it.
We tried to hide it, yes, so that way people can't see it. Sean's going to be the only one that really does have a view of it himself.
Okay, that answered all your questions?
Just one more question,
Okay, that's
please.
fine.
The area that will be made impervious around the construction site by either paved concrete or paved asphalt, is there an expectation of that?
Yes, and that's shown on the plan as well. And certainly that can change a little bit as we go through the site plan process. The runoff will all be captured. We'll have to provide stormwater management for all impervious surfaces, whether it be the buildings or the paved areas.
Thank you.
That'll all be addressed during site plan process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone, go ahead. Mr. Herdigan.
Larry Herdigan, Herdegn, Hay Drive, Manchester. Keith, the question is, if it's a 40-acre site and we say we zeroed dead center of the property, would the commercial area be not asking for a variance if it was in the center? And are we looking for a variance because we want to locate the commercial property and then in the future subdivide into residential on the remaining part of the land? Is that the long-term thought of the process and not going in the center?
Well, certainly, there's multiple reasons why we can't put it in the center. That's a valley going right up the center of it, which conveys the runoff from the existing fields down towards Route 30. So, I mean, that's an obvious reason why we can't put it there. But certainly, you do want to, as we go through this process, be able to protect whatever land rights Mr. Hochstad has. We have not pursued additional perk tests at this time for any additional creation of additional residential lots. But that's certainly a possibility.
Any other questions of Mr. Heindell's testimony? Board members? I got one quick question.
Okay.
Is there any place that you could have placed this shop on that 40 acres that you would not have needed variances outside of that valley that runs up, basically up through the center?
No, because if you went east of the valley, that would have required variances for the properties on the east, and same way with on the west.
Now, Keith, remember, that's a complicated question because of the complications of the distance language.
Yeah.
The distance language says, you got to read it 20 times, and I have read it 50 times, but it says you have to be X feet. In our case, it's 600, okay? You have to read it to figure out if it's 600, 200, 400, 800, or 1,000. We're 6. Even though your ordinance says in one place we're 4, in your ag zone, it says these have to be 2 times the distance requirement. But you look at the distance regs, it says you have to be 3 times. So we used the 3 times. We took the higher. That's why so anyway, we did. Just a little comment on the ordinance. But it says you have to be X feet from 1, any lot in a residence district, capital R, capital D. That means R-zoned properties. These are A or C-zoned properties, 90% of the ones we get. So, no, that doesn't apply to us. We don't have residential zoning districts around us. So, boom, we don't need to be any distance from them. To any residential lot of less than 3 acres in the A or C district. So, you have to look at all the lots that border you, and you look at their size. And if they're less than 3 acres and they're a residential lot, meaning they have a house on them, to me anyway, then you need to look at how far you are from them. That's what we did with that one lot. That's the only lot less than 3 acres. So we said we got to be 600 feet from that lot line. Now, you all probably remember, I'm sure you do, the previous iteration of this that had a thing saying you had to be X feet from the curtilage area of a lot greater than 3 acres improved by a dwelling. So that meant you had to look at every lot that was over 3 acres, and you had to see if it had a dwelling on it. And if it did, and this was kind of wild, you had to be X feet from the curtilage area of that house. Now, how do you get permission to go on all your neighbor's property? To figure out that distance? I mean, you can Google Earth it and all that stuff, but what we did, and what the practice that was adopted and approved implicitly by you all, was we took a 1 acre curtilage area, drew a rectangle, I think it's about, 400 by 400, is that, it's gotta be the 43,000 square feet. We drew a square by 218 around the house, and then we measured to that square. Well, that came out, and we're now dealing with, the only thing you need is from the lot line of a lot less than 3 acres. So, Keith, with that being said, I think your testimony is still truthful, which is no, I don't think we could locate it anywhere else. Is that true?
I believe that's correct, Clerk, because there's one lot to the east side, southeast side over here that's only 2 acres. And by moving it over there, we certainly would have been within 600
Or you'd have to
feet.
locate the houses on all the other lots.
Right.
And then measure that distance.
That's correct.
Well, actually, no. No, you wouldn't. Not under the new one. You wouldn't even have to do that. So I think the answer is we don't know. For sure.
The ordinance is
Mr.
very
Schaefer, this is
ambiguous.
off base, but are you charging by the hour or by the minute? Because either way, you won in
By
that,
the
in that
word.
non-answer.
The word.
So,
Oh, my.
okay, are you finished with this witness, Mr. Schaefer? Okay, we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. BZA meeting back to order. Mr. Schaefer, do you have any other witnesses?
No, that concludes our presentation.
Okay, at this point in time, this is what everyone in the audience has been waiting for. This is the time for you to present your own testimony. So if you could go to the microphone in an orderly fashion, and you can give your testimony. You don't have to ask questions. You can give your testimony, but stay at the microphone because Mr. Schaefer may have questions for you, and then the board may have questions of your testimony. So go ahead, one by one.
Us?
Yeah.
Larry Herdian, 4756 Hay Drive.
Go ahead.
No, I thought he had a question. He was.
No, you can give your testimony.
No,
And then,
I personally, I don't have a problem with this gentleman, building his house and whatever and keeping a small piece of commercial property. I just don't want to see it turn into an industrial complex. down the road. That's my biggest concern with everyone in the area. I mean, you know, he knows it's a small farm parcel, and don't want it to look like an industrial complex when you drive past the property. That's just my biggest concern. So, thank you.
No questions?
Board members?
No questions.
Mr. Hertigan, thanks for your participation here today.
Thank the system. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Mr. Michaels, you good?
Marlon Michaels, 4850 Hay Drive. Our biggest concern, it's a quiet neighborhood. Homeowners have spent years getting to this point, you know, improving their properties, their homes, and so forth. And anything commercial coming in always can throw a wrinkle into that. And I think that's why I'm here today, because of that concern. And probably why Larry's here too, and others. It's my only comment.
Questions?
Any questions, board members? Again, thank you for your participation. Okay. At this point, presentation of testimony and evidence is now closed and summations are in order. Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think this meets the conditional use standard clearly. And as I've argued before in at least a lot of my cases, and I think justifiably, this one not only doesn't have adverse effects above and beyond, it fits well. It checks off a lot of the boxes. I mean, I don't have to tell you that because this is not your first contractor's equipment storage yard case. So you know they're on all kinds of properties. This is a 40-acre property, well situated so that it is hidden from view. And I understand truly the skepticism that was evidenced and ferreted out by the questions from the audience and the board as to, wait a minute, this sounds really, are you kidding? You got this big concrete company and that's all you do on this site? But I think his testimony held up. Yes, it's true. That's the way the business works. So the testimony clearly shows that it meets the requirements. Regarding the variance, I think this is a very strong variance case. I've often struggled legally with the issue of if the distance requirements or the setback requirements are such that there's nowhere on the site that you could really put it, is that per se, require a variance? I mean, because you can't use it. Could the drafters of those distance regulations have contemplated that the effect of those distance obligations would be that, I'll use a figure, 60%, 58% of the properties in Carroll County that would otherwise be eligible for the use can't do the use? I don't think so. I think that I'm getting paid by the word here. I think there's a difference between the review that you should apply to distance variances as opposed to setback variances. The 15 feet from the property line. Those are zoning things. But anyway, I don't need to get into that here. This is unique and unusual property. There is a hardship here. This location is the best one on the site. And to apply the variance or the distance requirements to either eliminate it or force it to be located somewhere else would not be proper, would not be justified under the circumstances. And furthermore, as I know you'll remember, is that the distance variance from the lot, there's no objection to it from the property owner on the record, and that property owner is shielded either mostly or completely. So we appreciate your your attention and would ask that you approve both the conditional use and the variance. Thank you.
Okay, the hearing and record of this case is now closed, and in accordance with the Open Meetings Act of Maryland, the board will now consider the case. Mr. Snyder, we always start on the left.
You sure do. Well, first of all, thank you to everyone who has participated in the hearing today. We always appreciate that. It provides insights and perspectives from varied viewpoints. When I look at the equipment storage yard, I look at the impact on the neighborhood. Not only the applicant and their need to be able to do business and be able to utilize their property as they see fit, but that use or right that cannot overly influence or impact the neighborhood in which it's in. I was very impressed by the testimony. I understand this business model. I can tell you logistically, it makes no sense to drag equipment back from one site, from a work site back to a base and taking it back out again and so forth if you had the ability to continuously use it. It only makes sense. One thing I do look at in storage yards is that there is not an indication it's going to digress into a material storage yard. We've all seen them, and they're quite an eyesight, and really it's kind of a perversion of what they're supposed to be. I'm satisfied by the testimony that this is not going to become a material storage yard. As far as the variance, contrary to Mr. Schaefer's viewpoint, variance distances are put there for a reason, because if they weren't there, we would have nothing to consider or to guide us. And the fact that a piece of property has a hardship doesn't necessarily mean that any variance should just be kicked to the curb and ignored. The reality is that if it cannot fulfill a variance, maybe it doesn't belong there. In this particular case, however, given the testimony, it appears that the property is a large property. It is not a unique use in that of the commercial that's being used in the general area. It isn't like this is an agricultural farm area out in Buckman's Valley Road and there's no commercial and all of a sudden we're plopping something in there. So I'm comfortable with the use. I think the variances are guidelines that we have the ability to mitigate as appropriate. In this particular case, I have no problem mitigating the variance in that the site for the storage yard could not be located anyplace else feasibly within the property. So with all that babble, I will share that I would support approving the variance and approving the use.
I agree with what Mr. Snyder said. I also feel that since the applicant will be living on the property, that will in itself keep a respectable area. So I don't see any reason not to approve the use and the variance as well.
Mr. Colwell.
I think the land surveying engineer has done as best he can. Let me take this off so you can hear me better. Has done the best possible job in locating the yard so that it's effectively screened. You driving along that road, you can't see anything except that steep hill. I think it's very well planned in that respect, so I don't have any objection to it.
Mr. Simmons.
I think it's a simple case, well presented. No question as to whether or not it's appropriate, and I'm going to vote to approve it.
I just want to say we're looking at a 40-acre site. The building is located pretty close to the existing trees. It's screened in that direction. It is greater than 25% slope there from Route 30 up through the draw where the driveway is going to go. That's the only place that you could get access to that. So the placement has to be where it is. So therefore, we need to grant the variance. And as far as the conditional use, in Carroll County, we don't have a lot of places in the commercial zone for these type of operations, and they've kind of migrated to the ag zone as a contractor storage yard. And based on the testimony that we heard today, this is not going to be contractor storage yard that we would normally see, because it will not have construction materials, leftover construction materials stored on site. It won't have the bulk of the material. We got a piece of evidence that there's only a handful of pieces of equipment that were outlined in red that's in the file that will be there permanently. Everything else will be moving from job site to job site. And because of that, I think that's special circumstances as to the use of Mr. Hochstad. It should not have an adverse effect on the community. So with that, board, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll do one if you wish.
Okay?
In case number 6419, that the board approve the request for a conditional use for a contractor's equipment storage yard and one distance variance.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Our oral decision will become final upon a written decision which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by this board. The board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the circuit court for Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision. Thank you very much, and this hearing is adjourned.